Good evening from Swansea wrestling fans. I'm your host, Ben Allison, and you are listening to Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast, your one-stop shop for pro wrestling insight, news, and reviews on a daily basis. Tonight, we will be answering the question as to what's happening this weekend as we preview both tonight's episode of WWE SmackDown and tomorrow's episode of All Elite Wrestling's Collision. And to join me to discuss all of this, firstly, the co-host of the show, Clark Taylor. How are you, Clark?
I'm doing well. Happy Friday. I'm stoked to be back once again. And excited to talk about both WWE and AEW today. We got a lot on the table here. It's gonna be fun.
Absolutely, we do. We're previewing all the weekend in one show because, well, the wrestling schedule is that busy now. But also joining us, we have the head of reviewing here at Wrestling Republic, Coby Galenzoski. How are you, Coby?
Pretty good. I finally was able to hear the opening intro music that for the daily. I've been having some stupid AI noise reduction crap settings, and that happened for like the last 2 weeks. I haven't been able to hear the intro. I can finally hear it. I'm in a good mood. Let's talk Collision. Let's talk Travel Court. Let's talk everything.
Absolutely. Let's get right into it. And let's firstly, before we get into it, let's talk Instagram Reels. Let's specifically talk Wrestling Republic's daily broadcast Instagram Reels. As you all know, we post clips from this podcast on our Instagram page, and they do very well, right? But of course, we take things, just 60-second clips out of arguments, and a lot of these arguments were all disagreeing with each other and all of that stuff, right? And specifically, a couple of days ago, Clark said something on this podcast about Dominic Mysterio and how he no longer finds the ex-condom gimmick, that entertaining, and he thinks he needs to move on from it. Well, if you listen to the podcast, you'll know that all of us, disagreed with him on that show. But the fact of the matter is, Clark had an opinion, and he shared an opinion. Wow, what a crime. He backed up his opinion well. Yes, I disagreed. But at the end of the day, guys, come on. Just because somebody has a different opinion to you, that doesn't mean you need to go at them in the comment section. That comment section was brutal. I mean, people were telling me to fire Clark for it. I was like, what? Clark, do you have anything to say on the matter?
Oh man, I enjoyed it. Honestly, it's all in good fun in my eyes. I didn't take any of it personally, right? I mean, come on. If it was people that knew me saying it, then yeah, maybe that might ruffle my feathers, but apparently I ruffled some of the IWC's feathers, and it is what it is. It's good, healthy discussion, some trash talk involved in the good old comment section, but at the end of the day, no harm, no foul. It was as fun as could be. It is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll read some of these out really
good
quickly.
Ones?
Yeah,
the crying thing, I'm like, I wear contact lenses, maybe a little bit of eye watering. I don't know. I promise I don't usually cry over pro wrestling. It's very, very, very minimal how often I cry over it. And those are some of my favorite ones. I'm like, do I just have like a glint in my eye? Is that how it's going?
Some guys very bluntly just saying, I don't like this guy. Another guy in the comments is saying, these guys don't even watch wrestling. I'm sorry, what? These guys, again, we disagreed with Clark, and Clark's entitled to his opinion. He wouldn't have the opinion if he wasn't watching. It was ridiculous.
It is hard to make up an opinion about something you haven't seen.
Exactly. Damn, this dude is always whining. Fans seem to like these Wrestling Republic getting loads of predictions wrong lately. What's that got to do with things?
I'll give the Scott Hall on that
and
one.
This is what I say.
The good old Scott Hall.
Getting both Money in the Bank winners, correct? Like, come on.
Exactly. Kobe's getting them, right? It's just I've been having them out. We've got Matt Williams in the comments saying, I'll fight them, Clark. Just give me the word.
No.
But yeah, we've also got Soul State. Great show yesterday. Was watching it in a nightclub. Well, great to have you here, Soul.
Appreciate
and
it, Soul.
Let's jump straight in to previewing tomorrow night's episode of All Elite Wrestling's Collision. Of course, we haven't really spoken about it that much on the broadcast yet. We spoke about it a couple of days ago, but This past week, AEW Collision did a bad rating, right? There's no sugarcoating it. I know we kind of, played devil's advocate on the show the other day and, gave them the benefit of the doubt. But at the end of the day, 442,000 views for a show is not good. It really isn't. TNT are expecting at least 550K per episode. That was well below it. The thing is, of course, as we spoke about the other day, they were against Money in the Bank earlier on in the day on the Saturday show. So yes, they weren't directly clashing, but at the end of the day, I've said day a lot of times, haven't I? But when it comes to, all of it, you watch 3 hours of Money in the Bank, maybe, 4 hours, 3.5 even, right? You're not going to want to watch Collision for 2 hours then either. So I understand why I went down, but this week they need to do well, and they have stacked the show because FDR will be taking on Juice Robinson and Jay White of Bullet Club Gold. And I think this is going to be a very fun match. I'm looking forward to these matches. 3 of my favorite guys are in this match. No hate to Juice Robinson. He's just not quite on that level yet. He's not even told me what type of juice it is. So it's difficult to, rate him for it. But I think this is going to be a very fun match. Indeed, the one issue I have is it's quite obvious FTR are going to win, and then it's going to lead to FTR versus the Guns again. Jay White, he got some momentum a couple weeks ago after, getting the pin on CM Punk's team. So why are you already, having him lose in a match if that's the way it goes? But Clark, give me your thoughts on this one.
It's an awesome on paper matchup. FTR versus Juice and Jay White. I mean, come on, it's a great matchup. It does feel weird that they would be using this to build towards a match with the Guns. That's frustrating to me. And it seems logically like we're going to see Juice take a big rig, and that's the end of the ball game. Maybe a spike pile driver, who knows? I hope FTR and Bullet Club Light get time because I think if they could put on a great.
I've had enough of this.
Sorry, Diet Bullet Club. And so I actually really enjoy them. I'm a huge Jay White fan, honestly. Like I just the 50-50 booking is frustrating to me. I hope that this is close enough that it takes everything FTR's got to put them away, and then we somehow build towards the Guns, or maybe even a non-finish. Maybe have the Guns, I don't know, ruin this somehow, and there's a little dissension already in Bullet Club, but not quite. And yeah, I'm really not sure outside of just simply FTR goes over what you can do to build upon this outside of just for the Guns.
Yeah, I mean, we've been watching a lot of Nitro and a lot of old Raws lately, me and Clark have. And I mean, one thing they did in pretty much every week, and they did it way too much, was a DQ finish. However, I feel like it's a lost art now of a good DQ finish when it makes sense. And tonight in this match, maybe it would make sense, And I do agree with you, the 50-50 booking. I mean, we've been seeing that a lot about AEW television lately, haven't we?
It's really not their fault either. I feel like I come across like, making fun of Bullet Club Light and the name, but it's really the booking that's bothered me about it. I have no problem with the Bullet Club name itself. It just doesn't feel like Bullet Club to me, the way I've always viewed them and pictured them, is like modern NWO, right? You have a group that's a force to be reckoned with, and they have the numbers advantage on almost everybody. They've got the leg up on almost everyone because of the amount of talent in the group and all that goes into that. And I just don't see that with this version. That's why I make the light and diet jokes. It's just, and it's frustrating because I know how good Jay White is. I love that they brought Juice with him. Maybe add El Phantasmo to the mix, and then you have 5. And that, I think, a little bit more numbers, something like that. Yeah, I don't know, but they just need more than just the 50-50 booking and carrying the name over to America.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you there. We got Matt Williams in the comments, and he loves the Bullet Club Light reference you made. I mean,
it's on draft.
it's a funny joke and all that. But I loved their promo last week. However, it just is 50-50 with them all of the time, and I hated they did that brilliant promo, and then instantly they put Juice Robinson into a match, and they were like, well, none of the rest of the Bullet Club can be at ringside. And you're like, what? Well, we haven't even, established them yet. It's not like week in, week out they've been doing that, and now they're putting that rule in place. It was they're putting that rule in place before it even gets started. And yes, I know there's the argument, of, well, they're acting smarter, which is true. It is true. But it also kind of ruins it. Like, what's the point in the Bullet Club if you're not going to give them the numbers advantage?
Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
It hurts.
But let's move on to two guys who I am a fan of, and I'm a big fan of these two guys. And those two guys are Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs, who'll be taking on each other in the Owen Hart Cup semi-finals tomorrow night on AEW Collision. And I think this is going to be a great match. Obviously, they're renewing their rivalry. The rivalry, which, to be honest, I thought could have gone a bit longer and could have been a bit better. I thought it was a bit of a disappointment in the end. But they're two top guys. And they're also two top guys who kind of need wins. So they're in a difficult, situation here, right? Now, this is going to slightly spoil the next segment, which we'll get into in a few cheeky minutes' time. But there's a couple of different ways of looking at this, but I do believe Powerhouse Hobbs will be getting the victory, right? Because he's in the intro of AEW Collision. They really pushed him as one of the main stars of AEW Collision. When they first started advertising the new show, Powerhouse Hobbs was one of the names, and it was kind of like, why is Powerhouse Hobbs on you? He's not some big draw. But I think the reason that he was on there is because they are planning a big push for him, and I will not complain about it at all, because I think he's got bucket loads of talent, and he could be a top star for All Elite Wrestling. We've spoken at length about, how MJF's their first true, homegrown star there. Darby Allin's another one that could be argued. Sammy Guevara, Jungle Boy, they're developing those two as well. But it's really only those four guys, and of those four guys, only one or two of them have really hit that next level yet. So they need to start building other young guys too. And Powerhouse Hobbs and Ricky Starks, that matter, certainly could be two of those guys. Of course, we've also referenced on the show before the possibility of Ricky Starks jumping over to WWE whenever his contract does expire. We know that he's dating Bayley, WWE star Bayley. We also know he's very close friends with Mr. Cody Rhodes. So I don't think it's out of the question. He's always said that he wants to go to WWE. He's always been clear about that in interviews. But I don't know how long's left on his contract. I'm going to have to wait and see. But Kobe, who do you think will move to the next round, to the final of the Owen Hart Cup between Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs?
So there is in fact two angles to approach this kind of discussion. Is they've been building or at least involving the idea of Punk and Ricky Starks having some form of connection, some form of respect, because Ricky Starks won his match last week and Punk raised his hand. There's something there, and I don't want to say Hobbs winning kind of just throws that in the garbage, but it would. But the question is like, does Hobbs not need this victory? Because he had such a weird title reign with the TNT reign. Keep in mind, he's still apparently representing QTV, which, once again, is that really how you want to push Powerhouse Hobbs as a part of QT Marshall's faction? It doesn't make no sense. AEW struggles to book bigger / powerhouse men. And I mean, like, neither Wardlow and Hobbs are built well. Like, the booking can attest to that clearly. I don't think Hobbs gets the win here. I think it is a Ricky Starks, because you can go either way of Starks versus Samoa Joe or Starks versus Punk, because you already did somewhat build up Ricky Starks with the Punk respect from last week's Collision. So.
No, that is a great point. The fact that they have teased a little bit, so they've only teased respect between them, but the fact that they've actually done something to put them both in the same ring and, tease stuff does make you think, hey, it could go on that way. I personally am a fan of QTV. I think what they're doing, especially Harley Cameron as of late, has been very entertaining, but I also do agree that Powerhouse Hobbs, he kind of just doesn't really fit in with them. And they've not really been in that many segments together as of late, too. It is a bit of a weird one. I will 110% agree with you there. We got Soul in the comments who's saying, I think Joe will beat Punk and the final will be Joe versus Ricky. Well, I mean, that would certainly be interesting. And then Punk would cost Joe the win, leading to Punk versus Joe for the ROH TV title at Death Before Dishonor. I think that could be fun. I do agree with you, Soul. I do think that would be fun. I also don't think that Punk's going anywhere near a TV title, because no way would he lose that. And if they're going to put him anywhere near Ring of Honor, it'll be the world title. Punk will not take a singles title at this point in his career, and I would not blame him for that move when he is the main event talent that he is. But let's talk now about CM Punk. Let's talk now about Samoa Joe, and let's talk now about them facing each other tomorrow night on Collision in the other semi-final of the Owen Hart Cup. And this one for me, I really, really strongly do think that CM Punk is going to be getting the victory. I do not see him losing before the final. He's just come back to the company. They're pushing him again. Samoa Joe can take a loss. CM Punk, I feel they're trying to make the face of Collision. They're trying to make him a big main event star. I mean, he's literally the AEW champion in waiting, basically. He's carrying around that, his belt, his old belt in that black bag. He's not showing the belt. Out of respect, I don't know if you want to say out of respect for the title, or out of respect for Tony Khan, or out of respect for MJF. Probably not MJF, but out of respect for somebody, he's not showing the championship itself. But I 100% do see him winning Q, and I also do 100% see CM Punk winning the entire tournament. And I think he'll win against Powerhouse Hobbs in the final. But Clark, you're from Chicago as well. You're a big CM Punk guy. What are your thoughts heading into this match?
I mean, it's so cool to see Punk and Joe in the same ring again. I think it's kind of cool that they didn't try to build this as the final, because you can put it on Collision as almost like a headlining match like this. And given their history, I love it. I think Punk goes over for sure. Just to me, with the tournament, he makes the most sense in the final over Joe just slightly, because of how big of a draw he is, as you mentioned, and the way kind of the original tournament worked, where yes, they got the title belts, but it's not like a belt you defend. It's a way that you can elevate Punk without having him directly rub shoulders with MJF and build towards the what's in the bag storyline. And for that reason, I've got Punk winning. And then I hate to admit it, but I really, really, really agree with your take on Punk over Hobbs in the final. I think that's how it goes. I don't know how he wins against Hobbs. I'm hoping that would be because it's the Owen Hart Cup, more of an Owen Hart type finish. I do think we see him hit the GTS on Joe tonight. But for Hobbs, I don't see the GTS being the way to put Powerhouse away in the final. And not to get way ahead of myself, but just while we're there, that's the one caveat that I'm a little concerned about with Hobbs versus Punk in the final.
Do you think from there they will go directly into the MJF CM Punk feud once he wins the tournament?
I think MJF might crash somehow, like the Owen Hart title ceremony. I think that might be the most direct route. That stupid belt and the other one you're carrying, they're worthless. I've got the real one with the Burberry strap and everything.
Yeah, I was just about to say that myself.
Right.
But what about you, Kobe? You previously said that you thought Ricky Starks was going to win the other qualifying match, and you thought, I think you did already say that CM Punk would win this one. But so is it CM Punk you see defeating Samoa Joe in this?
I mean, the biggest question and almost the biggest problem I have with the booking in this scenario is we have AEW booking Samoa Joe so strong with getting the choking finish and beating up Roderick Strong, and it's like, okay, he felt like a real threat. Now we're gonna have him lose to Punk. I understand Samoa Joe losing in the finals, but it doesn't add up. You're gonna have him booked so strongly in his quarterfinals to get to Punk, and then Punk wins. I don't know what happens. I don't know if this would be the right direction, but I'd be interested in a non-finish here. So we get versus Joe versus Starks.
Oh, wow.
I still don't think Hobbs smells it, but I think that's the direction, because what does booking Samoa Joe so strongly do just to lose to Punk do? Unless, what are you going to, okay, well then all in, it's going to be Punk and Joe, because...
I mean, it's not like it's QT Marshall.
I don't know.
Kobe made a good point, though.
But it's Samoa Joe being
champion.
So strong.
Yes, but CM Punk never lost the world championship. You could argue that he is the uncrowned world champion currently, right? He's Yuri Prohaska at 205 in the UFC. If CM Punk comes out and beats Samoa Joe, that's not that big of a loss for Samoa Joe to have to take. He's losing to even if he's being booked strong, this is one of those situations where Joe can take the loss to Punk. Punk
It's true.
is
He
arguably
could.
the
I
active
think
world champion.
the bigger question kind of is, if Joe gets the win, Punk gets the win, like Saul touched upon, then if Punk beats the Ring of Honor TV champion, then shouldn't he get a Ring of Honor TV championship title shot? Unless CM Punk just goes, well, I'm not interested.
Well,
but at that point, it makes that title look weaker.
At the pay-per-view, like Soul mentioned.
But then it's a TV. No way is Punk contending for a TV title.
Guess who goes over?
Why not?
Guess who goes over in that one? Joe. That's how you get 1-1. Joe goes over in that one and retains his title, and he loses in the Owen Hart tournament.
But then when they do the inevitable Punk versus MJF feud, then that makes Punk look weaker heading into that.
Maybe, barely. I don't know.
It depends on the booking. That's the thing. That's where I throw this entire scenario for askew. We have 2 weeks until Death Before Dishonor, and yes, we don't cover a lot of Ring of Honor, but we are right now. Why does it make sense that maybe Punk? I agree with Punk saying, yeah, maybe I'm not interested. Samoa Joe becoming unhinged to like, we need to fight again. I need to beat you. I need to prove you got the fluke, because they've already mentioned Samoa Joe has never lost to CM Punk. And I do think Punk wins, but I don't like the fact that Samoa Joe is booked so strong just to lose to Punk.
Yeah, no, that is a great point, Kobe. And perhaps, you did throw it out there about, potential triple threat. And honestly, we mentioned earlier in the show about Nitro, very commonly in the main events, they do like no DQs and all of that. But we already know, right, Collision very much does have more of a Nitro feel, has more of a WCW feel. And a lot of things from WCW they've already taken on board, such as, the cold opens where they, do promos before the intro package itself. So I do think that it's possible perhaps they do take another leaf out of WCW's, arsenal. And they do a a DQ finish leading to a triple threat, perhaps. That is entirely possible. That would make a lot of sense. And if done well, I would not complain about it. We've got Matt Williams here in the comment section over on YouTube saying, wake me up when AEW brings back, how do you say it, Clark?
Juventud Guerrera.
As you guys know, I'm rubbish with
the
speech.
Juice, but, my favorite cruiserweight from WCW in the 90s. I was a huge Hoovy fan, the Hoovy driver, the 450, all of it. The most disappointed in my childhood was when Chris Jericho beat him for his mask. I was so furious.
Thanks for that spoiler, Clark.
And they asked him,
watching it all.
They acted like he was ugly and he was just a normal looking guy. I thought that was unfair from commentary. Like, oh, look at his hideous face. And it's like, what? He's just he lost the mask. I remember being so mad, like, why would they do that?
Oh, well, yeah. I touched on it earlier. We're watching some of the old Nitros and Raws at the minute, and it's so fascinating going back and watching them. It really is, especially that cruiserweight division. Minutes before the show started, we watched Rey Mysterio versus Dean Malenko, and that was
classic.
A banger.
Feet on the ropes.
Banger of a match. Truly, truly was. Rey Mysterio, one of my favorites of all time. Him, Shawn Michaels, and Edge got me into professional wrestling. I said it before, I will always say it. Those three guys have my eternal respect. But now let's move on to respect, to effect. And let's talk about the Grayson Waller effect with Edge, actually. One of the three guys who got me into wrestling. On SmackDown tonight, of course, Edge is making his long-awaited return to the blue brand. We briefly saw him after the draft in that World Heavyweight Championship tournament, and he lost in one of the triple threat matches. He got drafted to SmackDown, hasn't really done much. SmackDown's felt weird, to say the least, to be brutally honest. But let's not get into the draft. You're going enough debates about that all the time. And let's focus on this segment specifically. Grayson Waller, we last saw him this past Saturday at Money in the Bank, where he, of course, interrupted John Cena. And thus far, in his WWE main roster run, Grayson Waller has done nothing apart from interview talent. up until Money in the Bank, like I just touched upon, he interrupted John Cena. Yes, he took an AA and all of that, but that segment got a lot of eyes on him. And now this Friday tonight, he will be in the same ring as Edge for the Grayson Waller effect. And they clearly must have big plans for Grayson Waller to be giving him this much of a spotlight. And I'm not complaining about it. I think he's a phenomenal talent. But yeah, I mean, as to what this leads to, I don't know. I really don't. Is it possible we see Grayson Waller versus Edge at SummerSlam? I guess that's a possibility. Is it also possible that somebody else comes out and, gets in Edge's face? Yes, it's a difficult segment to predict. The one thing I will say is we know, obviously, Grayson Waller's had a broken leg. The fact that he took a bump and Money in the Bank tells me that he's now healed. So for that reason, I do think this is going in the direction of Grayson Waller and Edge at SummerSlam. But Clark, give me your thoughts.
I'm freaking stoked about this segment. I loved Grayson Waller's part in the Cena segment at Money in the Bank. I love that he got physical. I would like to see it happen again tonight. Edge being a member of the SmackDown 6 and returning to the blue brand for the first time in a long time, and then also having his long reign as world champion on the blue brand back in the day. We can have a little debate about whose show it is. Grayson can talk about, SmackDown being his show now. Edge can remind him of a little bit of the history, and we'll set up for an awesome SummerSlam match. And I really, really hope it delivers, because I think Grayson deserves some time. He deserves a big debut main roster match. He's earned it on the mic, I think, with his work, especially with the broken leg, on the Grayson Waller effect through this Cena promo. If any of this new NXT talent that was called up during the draft, I think has an opportunity to really prove themselves, a Grayson Waller Edge rivalry would be excellent. It's an excellent way to do it, and it's an excellent way to elevate him and give Edge a fresh opponent that's young and hungry. And I'm excited about that. I think that's good. It's good for all parties involved. And I think tonight's segment will deliver.
Well, let's hope you're right. And talking about young and hungry, let's talk about somebody else who's young. And I'd say hungry. Maybe you disagree, Clark. But let's talk about Austin Theory, who will be defending his United States Championship tonight on SmackDown against Sheamus. And this is one of those matches where, very simply, just should have happened in London. Sheamus was so over when he came out, and he didn't even have a match. He just, came out, with Butch and with Ridge. He was so over in the O2. He really, really was. The fact he didn't have a match, I can't get my head around it. It should have been him versus Austin Theory, but that's a whole other topic I'm not going to get into too much here. But let's talk about this match tonight. Austin Theory has now held the United States Championship for over 220 days, I believe. So it is a really lengthy reign. It has felt like quite a while, although I'm saying it's felt like quite a while. The failed cash-in on the United States title doesn't feel that long ago. But then the question is tonight, will Sheamus defeat him? Will he end this United States Championship reign, this historic United States Championship reign? I believe he will not, because, I think Austin Theory is going to hold the United States Championship for quite a bit of time. He's very young. I've said it before. Yes, things aren't quite working for him right now. Keep him in the spotlight and just hope things figure themselves out. Because let's be honest here, in most situations where they've done that, it's ended up working out, right? There's a few cases where they tried pushing people for years and it never did, but in most cases, it ends up working out. Kobe, what do you think? Do you think it is time for Austin Theory to lose the United States Championship?
It's obvious it's time. And this is where, like I said, Grayson Waller's not going to choke that Cena rep. Theory has. Yes, you can say the booking, he hasn't done anything, and no, he hasn't. I'm not going to agree with that. Or I'm not going to disagree with the fact that he hasn't done anything. But Austin Theory is in such a limbo position where it's like he just beat Cena, which is a match a lot of wrestling fans were truly like, give us that match. and it under-delivered at WrestleMania, and he hasn't done anything since. Is this a matter of tonight he's going to get that title off of him? No, it's not going to happen tonight. If he was going to lose the title to Sheamus, it would have been in London. That's why it's this week. As like, yes, it's Madison Square Garden. They can put a title match on the position. I think the move is going to be for SummerSlam. It's going to be Austin Theory versus LA Knight. You truly have to dig with the fact that Vince McMahon wanted to push you, but then give me a month where I get to be me and the people truly get behind me. LA Knight needs to be viewed as the people's champion in this rivalry. LA Knight versus Austin Theory can deliver a good match, but I think this is where some form of reset has to happen on Theory. I don't know if that's trade him to Raw and put him with the Way and let him develop personality again. I don't know. But as of right now, it's not going to be Sheamus, but I do think LA Knight has to be the one to beat him because LA Knight's just so over.
That's true. And he's probably the most over superstar in the company right now. Coby, I know you've said it for months and months and months about how great LA Knight is. You absolutely have. I brought up age concerns about him over and over again, but there's no denying right now he's on top of the world. But something else you just brought up is that match, of course, Austin Theory had with John Cena at WrestleMania. A lot of wrestling fans really pushed for it. But Clark, I wanted to ask you, do you think that it's Austin Theory's fault that match kind of under-delivered?
It's like 50-50. I mean, there were two guys in the match. I didn't see the match delivering in the first place. I mean, Cena didn't do any... Most of the times we see Cena come back for a temporary storyline. We see him get in the ring a few times and get physical like he did before Reigns at SummerSlam, and they put on a heck of a match. He just tooled Theory on the mic, made Theory look silly, which I thought hurt the match in the first place. And then they went out and Cena wasn't, he admitted, right, less than ring ready publicly after the fact, and I think it was a 50-50 deal. Like, I don't think people were ready to see Theory beat Cena that cleanly, and I don't think do I think it was entirely his fault? No, right? He's not booking the show himself either, but I mean, he didn't do a whole lot to help himself that night, which it should have been on paper, right? You read Austin Theory versus John Cena, and Theory goes over to clean, dead in the center of the ring. That should be a career-defining moment for Austin Theory. I forgot about it about a week later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was real easy to forget, that is not Theory's fault. I don't think. That is circumstantial due to the booking and the way that it was presented. There was a way to make it memorable and make it what it should have been, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a shame too, because Theory's so young. Do I think it damaged him though? Thankfully, not really. I don't think it damaged him as much as it was a missed opportunity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no,
right?
Absolutely.
I don't think it hurt him as bad as it was a huge missed opportunity. And that's what I would say. Yeah.
I mean, you touched upon it just then. You said that, it felt like just something was missing and it didn't deliver in the same way in which, a lot of people expected. I mean, what do you think was missing from that? What do you think was the thing which just didn't deliver about it?
I think he was actually hurt by how badly Cena got him in that promo. And he didn't look he needed to, in the promo part of it, in the build to the match, establish like, I'm not afraid of you, and show like, look, but he really just got by the jokes. That was the biggest thing to me that was missing. Was I wanted to go into that match thinking like, because it felt telegraphed. It felt like, okay, Theory's gonna go over, but he looks so weak heading in, and we've made Cena look so strong by comparison. I'm not that excited about the match. I would have been more excited, and even like, as illogical as this might sound, I think had Theory been able to stand up for himself in a way that it was more 50-50 in the back and forth than the way it landed in the first place, I might have at least had the thought cross my mind that Cena could go over at Mania because Theory was so threatening in the promos, but he wasn't. It made it so obvious that it was like, okay, no, here's your cupcake, Austin. Like, you get to go over on Cena because you're the young guy. We're putting eggs in your basket. It was, what was missing just was a real storyline beyond Vince McMahon sees young John Cena in Austin Theory because they wear similar length trunks and have, similar haircuts and builds. Like, that's what it felt like to me, was just an on paper match. There wasn't a true story told outside of John Cena dressing him down for not having passion and not being believable.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's completely fair. And, talking about, storylines which didn't get to the levels we hoped they would, let's talk about a storyline which certainly has. And that is the Bloodline. They've been the highlight of SmackDown. They've been the highlight of WWE television for the past, 18 to 24 months now. It's really been excellent. And tonight, the Usos will be taking the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns to Tribal Court. Now, exactly why they're taking him to Tribal Court, I'm going to be honest, I don't really know. I'm not sure if Roman Reigns is even going to turn up for this thing, or if he's just going to be like, he's going to be like, I'm not going to court, whatever. But I think the direction heading out of it is what's a lot more obvious. I think this is undoubtedly leading to Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso at SummerSlam, the rematch, the third of their trilogy of matches. And of course, we saw Jey Uso pin Roman Reigns at Money in the Bank, the first person to pin Roman Reigns in 3 years. A huge, huge, huge achievement. And yeah, I do think that will be the SummerSlam match, the big stadium SummerSlam match that we will be getting. Coby, I'll take it to you first. What do you think will be happening in this Tribal Court segment tonight on SmackDown?
I think there's a question about what actually happens and how they play this often, because we saw the original one in January was almost a substitute because they had some of the because it was supposed to be a family reunion with people like Rikishi and all that, and some of them were under the weather. Is this a scenario where they attempt to do what they were gonna do? Like, do we see the elders getting involved tonight? I don't know. That I don't want to say that's my reason for being interested in this promo. It's not. It's the storyline, but it's an avenue to think about. Are we going to get to see some form of, are the elders going to show up, and are they going to side with Roman? Are they going to be disappointed with Roman, and is Rikishi going to side with his sons? Or do they keep it almost the simple route like they have the last few months, where it's Roman, Sikoa, Usos, and Paul Heyman? I don't know. I think it's an interesting avenue to talk about. But I don't know what actually happens. I do agree that it's going to probably help set up the direction of SummerSlam, whether it is Jey versus Roman or Jimmy versus Roman. But I'm interested regardless.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I mean, anytime the Bloodline are on our TVs, we're interested. We're all interested. And we got a question from Soul here, who's saying that he would be interested in Jey beating Roman for the championship at SummerSlam. It would be a perfect ending to the story. Well, I really would not disagree with you. I think Jey would be, a solid choice, but I don't think he will be the choice, because I don't think it's ending anytime soon. We should at Mania, Roman Reigns said, we're in the third innings, right? There's a lot of innings to go. And I think Solo will be the one who will eventually beat him. Maybe Cody. It'll be one of the two. But I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. The earliest I see it happening is Mania. I'm going to be honest, but very early prediction based on, how good of an opportunity last year's Mania was. I don't think it's going to be this year's Mania either. I think it's going to be sometime, one pay-per-view next year. But Clark, what about you? Do you think that we will be getting Jey Uso versus Roman Reigns at SummerSlam? And do you think it's possible Jey actually takes the title?
I love you, Soul, but nope, not yet. We're going to get the match, but we won't get the result. Roman Reigns will retain. As far as tonight's concerned, I'm so excited about it, because this is one of those things that can go any direction. I loved Coby touched upon the idea of the elders showing up, the idea of Tribal Court, but it's Roman being in the hot seat. I hope this somehow turns into Heyman being on trial, and they replay a bunch of clips of him being slimy, and they get Heyman on the hot seat, and then Roman comes and stands up for him. And it's about that. Maybe if that's how the elders get involved, that's what I want to see. is just Paul on the hot seat and squirming in his chair the whole time. I really hope there's at least some of that. Yeah, and not to jump back to the Jey Uso thing. It's not that I don't think Jey could carry the title or do all that. I just think we've built so much here to keep taking the rug out from under us every time we think it's finally the time. I was disappointed when they didn't pull the trigger on Sami Zayn. Full disclosure, at the time, the way things worked out, I love just the rug being pulled. The rug was pulled with Cody. The rug pulled again every single time. Just when you think you got him, he keeps the streak alive. And yeah, I see either a spear or a guillotine or some shenanigans, and Roman retains at SummerSlam. But I do think that's the direction they're going, is Roman versus Jey.
Yeah, I mean,
although Jimmy's never got his shot, let's give Jimmy a shot.
That's true. That's also true. I mean, Jimmy's not got his shot. I think he will get it. I think it'll be Jey this time because he was the one who pinned Roman. But Jimmy may be at a Payback, which will be the next pay-per-view after. I think that's entirely possible. That would be, a very interesting match for sure. But you briefly touched upon it, Clark, right? But every time we think that Roman Reigns' title reign is going to end, it doesn't end. And every time we go on our phones, we go on Twitter, we go on now Instagram threads, we go on a rant. Oh, I'm stopping watching WWE. I'm never watching it again. And then you're hooked in the next storyline. Every time, a couple of weeks back, about 6 weeks ago, whatever, we were saying the Bloodline storyline feels like it's it's thinning a little bit. Like, it's not as interesting as it was. And now, bang, we're as interested as ever. They pull us right back in again. What's the quote? Right when, I forget who it's by, but it's right when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
Right back in, yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely.
That's the thing is, we were almost saying that when Roman wasn't there.
Yeah.
And it was post-Mania where he showed up on the Raw after and then was MIA until essentially after the draft and after Backlash. That's when we were saying it, and it was rightfully so. But then it's like once he showed up, the storyline, of course, got kicked into that third gear, and it's like, oh yeah, this is better again. This is more tolerable than the same angle every single show, because that's what it was the Usos and Sikoa beating up Kevin, Sammy, and Riddle for 3 weeks straight. It was. You're
right. You're very much right there. And I mean, this is the thing when the draft happened that I was shocked about, right? Why they sent Austin Theory to Raw. To SmackDown. Because on SmackDown, you already had Gunther, right? Who's been a highly prestigious champion. He's somebody who's held the Intercontinental Championship for ages, and somebody who I thought, he'd be able to, do a great job on SmackDown on weeks when Roman Reigns is away. But he, in fact, was not there. And instead, they had Austin Theory, and they didn't book the United States Championship the same way, which was, it was very gutting, to say the least. But we got a comment here from Matt Williams, who's saying, I just wish WWE put as much time and attention into booking everyone and not just the main guy, not just the bloodline. Well, I've actually. Pardon?
I think they've started at least to a degree. Like, if you're going to compare a year ago, that was Vince's main attention and Vince's main point of making sure Roman was booked correctly and potentially making sure Brock was. I think from a standpoint of Triple H being the head of content creation, I do think it is that position where Triple H is at least putting a little more than Vince was.
I'd agree with a little more, but I still think that there's a huge problem. And it's
improved, but there's a gap between the two, right?
Yeah. And I've actually got an article coming out very soon, Matt. I'm in the process of writing it right now, and it's going to be titled that basically, they need to learn about how NXT and booking their mid-card. But anyway, guys, that brings us to the end of the show. If you're watching over on YouTube, please give us, a thumbs up and subscribe. It helps us massively. If you're over on Spotify, cheeky 5 stars, that would do lovely. We'll be back here tomorrow for our SmackDown review, 8 p.m. UK time, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you join us, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Clark and Coby for joining me. It's been a great time, guys. It's been a blast, and we'll see you tomorrow. Enjoy your evening.